September 17th is a monumental day for us here in the United States of America. Our Constitution was signed on September 17th. However, there is a very dark history that needs to be remembered. The Battle of Antietam, the bloodiest day in American history that happened here on our soil. To honor those who sacrificed so much for our country on September 17th, I would like to read an excerpt from my patriotic performance, Our Fallen Leaves, Ohio in the Civil War. Lincoln's 90-day war turned into a year with no end in sight. Instead of the quick and firm hand to end the war, the nation would reel with the bloodiest week in American history, 34,000 casualties. A newly promoted Confederate General Robert E. Lee inspired an unexpected vigor in the Confederate ranks, which was captured in their new anthem, War to the hilt, theirs be the guilt, who fetter the free man to ransom the slave. Up then, and undismayed, sheath not the battle blade, till the last foe is laid low in the grave, God save the South. As great as Lee was, the Southern government knew that they did not have the manpower to defeat the North in a long and drawn-out war. So in July, the Confederate States of America again began discussing the possibility of foreign aid with none other than Napoleon III of France. Lincoln, unwilling to part with the idea that all men are created equal, played a bold chess move by presenting the Emancipation Proclamation to his cabinet. So as not to appear desperate, he waited for the spotlight of a decisive Union victory. This proclamation gave the Confederacy two options: renounce rebellion or see your slaves freed. As the Confederacy refused, European military aid was successfully frozen. Despite losing European aid, Lee was emboldened by all of the Confederate victories. Then came his unsuccessful and short-lived Maryland campaign. As he turned south, a prominent Confederate general captured the infamous Harper's Ferry. Taking advantage of this victory, Lee quickly concentrated his forces just outside of Sharpsburg, Maryland, along Antietam Creek. The Union forces, hot on his heels, arrived to find that the Confederate Army was already in possession of the high ground on the Dunker Plateau. On the morning of September 17, 1862, Major General Joseph Hooker, a future Cincinnatian, opened the one-day battle in the cornfield. Here they would give and receive the most deadly fire of the war. Major Rufus Dawes of Marietta, Ohio, was part of this Union force. As we appeared at the edge of the cornfield, a long line of men in butternut and gray rose up from the ground. Men I cannot say fell. They were knocked out of the ranks by the dozen. Union men went down like leaves before an autumn breeze. Dawes recalled that, despite the frantic struggle to shoot fast, their ranks were thinned with every step by the devastating hail of iron. The strain of seeing scores of men mowed down before they could even fire a shot in their own defense placed a terrible strain upon the men left standing. Legs, arms, and other parts of human bodies were flying in the air like straw in a whirlwind. It seemed like the whole world was in arms against us. When loss of life silenced the Union cannons in Battery B of the 4th U.S. Artillery Regiment, their 15-year-old battery bugler, a Cincinnati paperboy by the name of Johnny Cook, loaded and fired upon the enemy, who repeatedly charged within feet of his belching cannon. Cook's unflinching courage forced a Southern retreat, which subsequently evaporated Lee's left center, leaving the all-important high ground defenseless. Here, 7 Union regiments, including the 5th, 7th, and 66th Ohio, turned the tide of the battle by occupying this key position, which they never gave up, despite wave after wave of attacks. Their cannons, red hot from firing so relentlessly, fried the dead, which fell upon their barrels. As horrible as the battle already was, the fever pitch was reserved for a sunken road, Bloody Lane. Here, unbeknownst to the Union engineers, 2 Confederate brigades lay hidden. As the Union forces crested the hill, the enemy rose up and mowed them down with the most withering volley. In an instant, the air was flooded with the sounds of the dying and the wounded. Despite the shock, the Union commanders refused to give way. The 8th Ohio, who was held in position at bayonet point, felt as if the sun stood still. Even the stoutest hearts grew sick of the terrible havoc of death. The hurricane of death-dealing missiles spared neither man nor beast. Legless horses screamed for mercy as both sides stood in the open, firing upon each other with deadly accuracy at short range without the semblance of breastworks. One soldier noted that until a Confederate regiment misheard an order, it appeared as though nothing but mutual extermination would put a stop to the awful carnage. At that moment, the 8th Ohio saw their chance for glory. These sons of Ohio, sacrificing life and health for one country and one flag, threw themselves into the inferno, and only after losing 50% of their men successfully blew open the Confederate center. The devastating hail of iron had lasted 4 hours and dissolved the 800-yard Confederate line, leaving a ghastly flooring of 5,600 soldiers killed or too wounded to escape. Then came the creak of death. Bullets cracked skulls like eggshells. It did not seem possible that anyone would escape as wave after wave of Union soldiers attempted to cross the only bridge. As exhaustion set in, future American President William McKinley of the 23rd Ohio delivered food and drink amid shot and shell to those in dire need. Ohio troops, crossing further upstream, flanked the enemy, leading to the capture of the bridge and the subsequent ending of the afternoon in the Valley of Death. By dawn, Lee had escaped into Virginia, leaving the citizens of Sharpsburg with 22,727 casualties to bury and aid. As much as it was a picture of despair, this was the Union victory that Lincoln needed. Despite being berated by his opposing party as an N-word worshiper, within 5 days the preliminary emancipation was public. 4 months later, the Emancipation Proclamation went into effect by means of a military order. This was a puff of wind for many of the 4 million Southern slaves who were supplying the entire Confederate Army, with no regard for sex and little regard to age. However, there were 2 very powerful elements that came out of this proclamation. The Union Army and Navy would now accept black soldiers, and wherever the Union military went, they were to recognize and maintain the freedom of every slave. While there were Union soldiers who disagreed with this proclamation, many soon found themselves inspired by the new marching song, Battle Cry of Freedom, which quickly became the unofficial national anthem of the United States.